This is Charlie Rose.
Lance Armstrong is here. Need I say more? By now, his story is legendary, both in and outside of his sport. With his third Tour de France win on Sunday, he has reaffirmed his status as the world's top cyclist and more.
He's passed 2 years with the major time trials, and he's done it with an incredible time here, winning in 1:14.60. Now, a victory over González Galdeano.
Armstrong's margin of victory over Germany's Jan Ullrich was 6 minutes, 44 seconds. He became the fifth man to win the famed race 3 or more times in a row and the first American to do so.
The Tour de France, who really respects Armstrong as a true champion. And this is the crowning glory for Armstrong after 3 weeks. He's there on the Champs-Élysées for the third time in succession.
It was only 5 years ago that the 25-year-old Armstrong was diagnosed with testicular cancer and giving discouraging odds against recovery. Today, he is cancer-free and recognized as one of the top athletic competitors in the world. And by claiming the yellow jersey in Paris last week, he has become the first American to win 3 consecutive Tour de France's. I am pleased, very pleased to have him at this table for the very first time. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations, obviously.
Thank you.
As you have heard 1,000 times, and each time probably a million. Just because people are fresh from seeing that video. I mean, give me a sense of what you were thinking as you came down to the close. Well,
the only thing that stays the same in the Tour de France every year is the final day.
Yeah.
Finishes on the Champs-Élysées in a city like Paris that is, like we talked before, one of the greatest cities in the world. The Champs-Élysées, one of the greatest avenues in the world, closed for the Tour de France, the Arc de Triomphe, all the monuments, all the museums, everything there.
Yeah. Full of history.
Full of history, and a neat street. Just even the street itself is neat, cobbled. Nobody knows the Champs-Élysées is cobbled, but it's brick, so it's an interesting feeling to ride on it.
Yeah.
And it's closed, and it's there, and the people are there, and your friends and your family and fans are there, and there's flags everywhere. Awesome. Awesome feeling is the answer to the question.
Yeah. And to win 3 times in a row for you?
Again, an awesome feeling. They're all different. They're all special. They all mean something different to me. It's tough to say. None of them are more or less special.
Yeah.
I think as an athlete, if it's if you're winning a bike race or an NBA championship or a golf tournament or whatever, they're all different, and you can't pick one. But it's nice to win.
You have said, though, that being known as a cancer survivor is more important.
I mean, it's infinitely more important. My point when I say that is that if I didn't survive, let's look at the basics. If you don't survive the illness, then there's nothing else in life. I mean, if you don't make it through, if you die, if the cancer gets you, there is no bike races, there is no family, there is no fun when you're 40. I mean, it's a
there is no 40.
Yeah, it's a silly question in a lot of ways.
Right.
I love both connections. I love the cancer connection, and I love the sports connection. But if you have to pick one, it's absolutely the illness, my bond to the illness, the patients that are fighting, the survivors that are out there, the family members, the doctors, the oncologists, the nurses, the surgeons. It's a great group.
Did you know you had it within you to make the battle that you did, or do you simply have no alternative, so you plunge ahead?
I think we all have it in us to be fighters. Not all of us have cancer. Not all of us have had cancer, and not everybody will have. I am, I think at the end of the day, a competitor, a competitive person. If it's a bike race, if it's a friendly golf match with friends, if it's fishing with friends. I mean, I want to catch the biggest fish. I want to, win the little golf game and try and win the Tour de France again. But the illness was no different. I mean, I viewed it as a competition between me and the disease, and I think that was healthy for me. I mean, if you read pieces of the book, I mean, we talk about my approach and pitting myself versus the disease, myself and my allies, the chemotherapy,
Right.
the surgery, the friends, the family, the thoughts against the illness.
Yeah, but you basically said to yourself when they said, and the chances are not good, you said to yourself, I can't lose. I mean, you said to yourself, no. I mean, there was an instant denial and saying...
You know, it's very similar to us sitting at this table.
Yeah.
You being the doctor,
right.
Me being the patient, walking in, there's nobody else in the room, and you delivering the news to me. I mean, at that moment, you're so surprised. You know, I didn't stand up and start shadow boxing. I mean, it was such a surprising moment that, you know, you're confused. I was very confused. I immediately was in tears on the spot. Because not only did I not know what my outcome would be, but I didn't know what I was up against. And that's a scary thing.
What does it mean to have cancer, testicular cancer?
What does it mean?
Yeah, no, you're asking yourself. What does it mean? You don't know what you're up against. You're saying, what does this mean?
I didn't know what the illness was. I didn't know what the treatment was. I didn't know what the surgeries were. I didn't know what my options were.
When did you think about cycling again?
You know, the great thing was that I thought about cycling again fairly quickly because I thought about it on a recreational level. I thought about just the fundamentals of riding a bike. I mean, not competing in the Tour de France, not competing in the World Championships or the Olympics or something like that, but just, okay, Lance, when can I walk into the garage, dust off the bike, and ride down the street? 500 yards. When can I do that?
What is this thing between you and a bike?
I don't know. I mean, it may be a good question. I don't know. I talk a lot about my love for the bike and the passion for it, and it's a job for me again now. I mean, they actually pay me to do it, but I love it so much that you know, today or on a vacation or in 20 years' time, I'm still going to do it. It's just fun.
When did you know you loved it? I mean, just loved it, beyond what every kid feels about a bike.
Right, because every kid gets that bike, and they get out and they're away from home.
It's
and
the
they're
first
free.
thing that gives you mobility.
Oh, you're mobile, you're free.
I remember growing up in a small village, and a bicycle got me away 3 miles away to the next village,
right,
where I could go to the drugstore, do whatever I wanted to do.
Right, and nobody was there to.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's freedom, and then 16 comes a car, which enables you to do other things.
Right,
Yeah.
and I never got that. For example, a car. I mean, it didn't give me that sense of liberty that bike did.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was, for example, when I got my first sort of 10-speed, I was about 13, and just that feeling of having a bike with a lot of gears, thin tires, felt fast to me.
Yeah.
At the time, it felt very fast. I don't know if I was going that fast, but it sure felt fast.
Yeah.
And that was a good feeling too. So it just progressed and progressed. And
Yeah. But do you have any doubt that you are now considered one of the great athletes, and I know your answer to this is time will tell. 20 years from now, we'll know that, but not now. But you're there with some of the legendary athletes because of your accomplishments. Do you believe that because of this internal discipline, this internal will to win, that if it hadn't been bicycling and you had been born in Colorado, you would have been an Olympic skier?
good question. Hard to say. I think that you're born with the soul and with the character and your upbringing and your friends and your family and your coaches and your teachers. They shape that a little bit. But I probably would have been a competitor in whatever it was, even if it was as a student, in college, moving on into business or moving on into life after college. I mean, that's also competitive. I hope it is.
No, of course it is. Life is competitive in 1,000 ways.
Yeah.
And you feel in every way. I mean, competitive with yourself, or competitive with others, or competitive with some standard that you want to challenge. You say that without cancer, you might not have won second, third.
Or the first.
Or the first.
Right.
Yeah. Wouldn't have.
Wouldn't have. Would not have, because because it taught me to focus. and it taught me to fight hard, harder than before. I mean, I was a good cyclist before the illness.
That's right.
I won the World Championships in '93. I won other big races, stages in the Tour de France. But I probably was on cruise control a little too much. And a talented athlete on cruise control can still have success. But a talented athlete that really attacks it every day can be the best.
I have had great athletes at this table tell me, what do they regret? And they regretted, didn't say it as well, being on cruise control. They regretted things that distracted them from being all that they believed somewhere in their heart they could have been, even though they had achieved remarkable things, Wimbledon championships and things like that. I could have done so much more if I hadn't.
It's all relative.
You know?
It's
But cancer, what did cancer do?
Well, many things scared me. Probably the biggest thing. Yeah. Really, really scared me.
Well, the stakes were that big.
The stakes were big. These are big stakes, life and death.
Right.
That's the biggest stake. Then you have the stake of losing your job, losing everything you've worked for. And I was down that road as a 25-year-old. I had foregone an education. I was a professional athlete, and none of that I could have gone back to those things. But I was well down the road, and that was also at stake. And just realizing that all these things can be pulled from you, and ultimately your life can be taken. Man, it's almost like a deal you make with yourself. That, you know, if you make it out, at least it's the deal I made with myself, that if I made it out.
Yeah. If you made it out, what?
Then I would fight forever, harder than ever.
It is said about you that you were the best prepared, you were the strongest, that you had worked the hardest.
I don't know what the others do. I don't live with the others, eat with the others, train with the others, sleep with the others. But I feel in my heart that we're the best prepared. We're the hardest worked team in the world. We're the most focused, the most motivated. It's a fun team. It's a great environment.
Motivated in terms of the exercise you do, in terms of the preparation you do, in terms of the nutrition that you...
24/7.
Yeah, 24/7.
I mean, it's everything. It's technology. It's training.
So now look back. Could you have been better? Could you have been faster?
This year?
Yes, sir.
I always like to think that there. No, I have to think there's something else out there.
Yeah.
I have to think. I think that's healthy for me to think, or any athlete at the top of his game to think. You know what? I felt good this year. I was strong this year. I won this year. But that's only going to motivate the others, and I've got to look for a new level. This year, I really tried to find a new level. I mean, I told the guys on the team.
A new level of performance.
Of
preparation of
compared
everything.
to year 2000.
Yeah.
But I told them all, I insisted, I said, we're going to a new level.
Yeah.
And they thought I was crazy, but...
Because they thought you had gone as high as you could go last time.
Well, they were a little scared, because you know what, in sports, especially endurance sports, when you try too hard...
It can be counterproductive.
Right. I mean, 90% is better than 101%. Yeah. Once you go over...
But 95 is better than 90.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you got to find that fine line.
It's like race car drivers have said many times. You know, when they take the curve.
Yeah.
You know.
There's that point of.
There's that point. If you
break
go over,
loose.
that's right.
Yeah.
You know, you've gone too far, but if you go too slow, you lose the race because there's somebody that's going to take it up a little bit higher around that curve.
And these are risks. They're all risks that you take, and but. Experience helps.
Do this for me. Take yourself away from yourself in a sense and look at this guy who's a cyclist. Analyze what makes him a winner.
Oh, boy.
Well, you know the game. You know the game. Is it his stroke?
Is
it his all? Is it heart? I mean, how do you... If you take one away, would he not win?
Right. I think there's the training. There's the specific aspects of the training, focusing on high cadence pedaling, utilizing every method possible to train better. Wattage meters on the bike, very intense workouts, wind tunnel testing in the off season to test different equipment, always focusing on the little things, the minutia. I mean, when we tried to create a light bike for the climb, for the mountains, I mean, you can save 5 grams here, 5 grams there, and most people would just say, don't worry about that, don't worry about that. But I said, every time we can save a gram, let's save it. Because at the end of the day, if you can do that 50 times, well, 50 grams. Right. Say it's 10 grams at a time, and that's, that's half a kilo. I mean, it's important to look at the minutia. Body weight. There's probably the biggest difference I've made pre-cancer and post-cancer.
The fat level has gone way down. Muscle
and fat. Right. Different body. I mean, the body changed because of the illness, because of the therapy, because of what I went through. The body is different. But the Tour de France's that I do now compared to the Tour de France's in, say, 1996, before the illness, probably 20 pounds less. That's a lot when you consider the climbs.
But you couldn't have had that without cancer?
Well, when I got sick, I didn't ride. The muscles changed. My muscles changed. I went from the muscles that I had, because there were 3 or 4 months there where I did absolutely nothing and I was beat down. Yeah. The muscles just went away. They disappeared. So then I was in this process of trying to build things back.
In a different way?
Well, they came back in a different way. I wasn't trying to put them back in a different way. I was just trying to gain back some strength. And my body looks completely different now than it did before.
Pete Sampras, a tennis player, once said to me something. Yeah, I know. But once said to me that part of the reason that he had such a brilliant serve was the way his, was something about his shoulder, which I can't remember. Tiger Woods has said there's something about his body also that enabled him to become a champion. Is there something about your body in terms of cycling, or is it all learned?
No, you have to be. The body has to be special. I mean, this body has to arrive. You have to be given a special gift.
And what's that?
Oh, it's a lot of things. It's muscle. It's lungs. It's lactic acid. A physiologist could talk for days about what makes a special.
So you were born with certain things that enabled you to become a 3-time Tour de France winner.
I think without that, you would not be able to be successful.
So you can't just set out. You got to have certain gifts going in.
But look at an athlete like Tiger. Okay, obviously very gifted.
Yeah.
But that's not why he wins all the time. Tiger wins because I'm convinced that he works harder than anybody.
I am too.
And he's more determined than anybody.
People who know him say he's the last man off the driving
Absolutely.
range.
And that's why he wins. And that's why he deserves to win.
It's that way with every great champion I've ever known.
Look at Agassi.
Especially Agassi today.
I mean, he's a beast.
Christmas Day, he's running up that mountain in Las Vegas. Well, I mean, he's just like you.
He deserves to win. Perfect.
What can you do? What can you do to make yourself better? I mean, are you up against some ceiling now, where you?
I think athletes at my age probably then start to think about age.
Yeah.
At 30 or 31.
You're 29.
I'm 29, almost 30.
When is 30?
No, I'm 29. Let's just call it that.
When is 30? Come on. When is 30?
September 18th.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Oh, is that your birthday?
No. I'm just saying it's close. You got to think about this. This is a big one.
So you cannot improve. You cannot improve forever.
Yeah.
And I know that, and I'm realistic about that. I think that 30 and 31 are still years of improvement for endurance events like the Tour de France.
Agassi's 31, just 31.
Right. Well, then there you have it.
Yeah.
But I think also at that age, you have to work a little harder. So I'm going to have to continue to work hard and continue to realize that this thing doesn't go on forever.
In a race, is there a head game going on of any kind?
Of course.
What kind? Intimidation? What kind of? Because there are certain athletes, when you're on the track, I mean, they're intimidated. It's a factor because you have won before, because you have won by overcoming huge odds.
I don't know how much my competitors think about what I've been through. I don't know if they think about it, if they know about it. I mean, I know they know about it, but I don't know how much.
If they hear you coming, well, but this is a different kind of race because it's not one race around a track. But if they hear your footsteps, they know.
But I don't know how much they factor in the illness.
Well, the willpower they factor in.
Yeah.
I mean,
but there's a lot of head games.
They probably say if it's me against him and the odds are even on every other factor, he's got an advantage because he somehow is mentally tougher than anybody that's out here on a bicycle. And there are reasons that we can point to believe that. A, he's won before. B, he's won against great odds. C, he came back from cancer.
There's a lot of head games.
He's one tough hombre.
Our sport there's a lot of tactical, mental games that are played.
Do you want to popularize this sport?
Absolutely. I hesitate and I pause because I know it's hard. It's hard to do that in America when you're up against the staples of sport in America: football,
golf, tennis,
baseball,
NBA.
basketball. You got but of course, I want that. I want participation at the youth level, even at the adult level in races, and I want growth in the industry. And there's two different things. I think there's the participation by the people, which is obviously they're hand in hand, but then the industry must grow as well. Of course, I want to popularize it. Is it possible? That I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. I firmly, and I've said this forever, I believe that sports are built on athletes. And we've just talked about Tiger, we don't need to look any further than Tiger Woods. Look at what he's done to golf. He did that because he's the athlete, he's the personality, and young people are into golf because of Tiger. And basketball, look at the NBA. Michael Jordan, look what he did for them.
Absolutely. I mean, the best example of that is
they're built around the athletes.
Sure.
And
wherever Tiger goes, television viewership goes way up.
So it's my hope that we can bring more people into the sport.
I mean, it's in the interest of cycling to see more of you. It's in the interest of cycling to tell your story.
The big question is always, what about events in America? Or, why aren't there any events in America? Or let's do one.
I'm getting to that.
So I mean, but you're up against such a tradition in Europe, and it's a European sport, and the tour is 100 years old, and all the other events are 100 years old, and it's difficult to start your own tradition. I'm not against it, but
listen to this. L.A. Times. 100 years from now, the world probably will celebrate Armstrong and his athletic achievements ahead of Shaq and Kobe, Michael and Magic, McGuire, or maybe even Tiger. 100 years from now, what we are seeing Armstrong do might be considered one of the greatest athletic achievements ever. Does that register with you at all?
It's nice.
Wow.
It's, I think we'll know in 100 years. You and I won't be here, but
no. I'll never give up hope.
Time will tell. Yeah, never give up, but time will tell. Those are big names. Those are big champions. It's an honor to be in that company. In the same sense with that company.
Yeah. Because basically, those are the questions they're asking about you now. I mean, the questions, the story, and you, I think, to your credit, don't want people to forget the cancer aspect of your story.
But I don't think they will.
I don't either.
No.
But it's important because it says something, not to cyclists. It says something to people with cancer.
Right. And I think for the meantime, it is less and less of the story. They speak less and less of the illness.
I know they do, but how do you feel about that?
Well, I don't really. I knew that would happen, and I wish it didn't. Right. But I can't control the ebb and the flow of the media and the impressions and the story.
You wish it didn't, simply because it's such a powerful message to those who are living with cancer.
Of course, but if they're writing something 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, they're going to write about the cancer. Absolutely. They're not going to write. I mean, yes, they'll write about the sporting achievements, but they're going to write about the cancer.
Yeah. But the question about you now is, as they frame this, the question around Armstrong revolves around greatness. How great is he? How great can he be? My question. How does his accomplishment rank with the legends of his sport? Those are the questions.
Tough to say. It's a different sport now.
How so?
Everybody now, at least in the last week, starts talking about streaks and records and can he do this and that.
Right.
And it's You have riders who have won 5 tours, people like Coppi and Merckx and Hino, and they won other big races. In the same year, they won races in the springtime, races in the summer, races in the fall. They won the World Championships. They raced all year long. We don't do that anymore. The sport is deeper, faster, stronger. There's more good riders. You have to be more specific with your efforts. You can't race from February to October anymore, unfortunately. Or maybe that's fortunately, I don't know.
Well, what else are you going to race in?
Well,
are you going to race at Spain?
Well, I mean, for an American, the only event is the Tour de France.
Because
for the mainstream American.
Oh, in other words, is it for an American viewer or for an American cyclist?
No, for just a sports fan. It's the one they know about.
That's the only one.
Yeah, but there are other ones.
I didn't even know they had one in Spain before I.
Yeah, the Tour of Spain, the Tour of Italy, the Tour of Flanders, Milan-San Remo. They have special. I mean, the big one-day races that are considered classics. Those guys in the old days, they won them all. I mean, Merckx would win the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Italy, Tour de France. I mean, he just dominated.
Can Lance do that?
No.
He can't do that because what?
Because the sport is, there's more good riders now. This is my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. It's a deep field now. If I tried to do that, maybe it is possible. But if I tried, and if my form peaked too early, and I came down, say I went over that hump we spoke about, and I came down for the Tour de France, and I just wasn't sharp enough, and I lost, everybody would be disappointed. I would be disappointed, the team, the sponsors. There's so much emphasis on the Tour de France, and maybe that's where things have changed. The Tour is a beast now. It's a global beast. The sponsorship involved, the worldwide media.
I mean, your endorsements are amazing.
Well, I don't know.
Well, no, it is because of what comes out of it. I mean, you know, one race.
Yeah.
It's not like anything. I started to say it's like the Indy 500, but it's not.
No, I mean, it's different, and it's if I won every race that I started all year long, but I got second in the Tour de France,
wouldn't matter.
Wouldn't matter.
Wouldn't matter at all.
The season would be a disappointment.
Yeah, that's right.
So I can't take that risk.
Tell me about this idea, and I'm not trying to lead into this drug question, which you can knock out of the park, but I'm trying to understand how today's athlete is different because of training, preparation, nutrition, that stuff that makes Babe Ruth did not know about nutrition.
Yeah.
Mark McGuire knows everything there is to know.
Right.
Lance Armstrong knows everything.
Not everything, but things are, I mean, it's, first of all, I firmly believe that humans evolve, and they improve over the years. Everything, I mean, not only does the body itself improve, but all of the things around it, all of the variables improve. The diet, the training, the sleep, the recovery, the tactics, all of this stuff improves. And it's absolutely normal and natural that records are broken, bikes are raced faster. I mean, it's normal that you see these things.
The bikes are better.
Everything. I mean, everything is improving here. I mean, we're not a stagnant society. Right. So if it's the 100-meter dash or if it's the Tour de France, it's normal that they go faster now than they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Because they know more about the physiology than the kinetics of the whole thing and everything else.
But then, as I know where you're going, I mean, then there's always the question of, well, maybe it improved too much.
Yeah, maybe it enhanced his performance.
Maybe, if you tried to draw a graph, maybe that graph just doesn't make sense the last 5 or 6 years. Tough one to answer, because I cannot speak for all sport. I cannot speak for all endurance sport or all Olympic sport or all sport in general. But I hold firm on the fact that we improve as people over time.
If you had used drugs, whatever they are, would your performance have been better?
The thing I like to point out is that I have never in my life ridden this fast, ever. I mean, the speeds I rode in 99, 2000, 2001 were much faster than I ever rode in 92, 93, 94, 95, pre-illness, much faster. In all of these years, or at least especially the last 2, there's been tremendous scrutiny. There's been tremendous amount of testing, and everything has been looked through. And it's clean. Everything is absolutely clean.
Why do the stories come? out?
They come because our sport has a history of that.
It has happened.
It has happened. There have been big risk takers, big ones, and ones that have been caught. Big stories, sensational stories, and we are living with that now. The biggest story ever in the sport of cycling was only 3 years ago.
What was that?
The Festina affair in the Tour de France, where the Soigneurs car was
right,
caught with just, I mean, I don't know how much stuff, I mean, just crazy amounts of stuff. And we're still living with that. We're still trying to prove our innocence. And you look at the sport of cycling, what they've done against in the fight against doping. Approved the EPO test, which nobody else has approved, not swimming, not track and field, not even the IOC has not approved it. Other controls.
Tell us what the EPO test is.
Well, EPO is of course, the substance that everybody focuses on.
Right. As performance enhancing.
Yeah, red cell boosting, performance enhancing hormone.
Right.
And they now are able to detect it. Synthetic. I mean, EPO is actually a naturally produced hormone, but can be taken artificially, but they can now detect that. Cycling is the only governing body that's approved this test.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah. They did it
after 3 years ago.
Well, you know, these tests are hard to work on, I'd imagine. I'm not a scientist, but it takes time to figure out exactly how to detect certain substances. This is the first year that they implemented the controls in the Tour de France every day. 10 riders a day, 22 days, I mean 200 tests. One positive. Last year, they didn't have the test.
One positive among how many riders?
Amongst the 200 that were tested.
Okay.
10 a day for however many days. Last year, they didn't use the test, but our team was placed under investigation in France because we were suspect for using performance-enhancing drugs.
Why were you suspect?
Because there was the TV crew in France followed the team and alleged that we threw out bags of syringes and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's kind of a long story, but I think most people know the story. A lot of speculation, a lot of false stories. Were no syringes. Were there? Look, in our sport, in the Tour de France, do you need an IV every few days because it's just so demanding? Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's like saying at a football game, a college football game in the summertime in Florida or in Texas. I mean, do guys get dehydrated and have cramps and need IVs in the locker room at halftime? Absolutely. That's not doping.
Yeah. What is it? What is the IV?
It's recovery.
Yeah.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah.
Or what do I refer to it as?
No, when you talk about IVs, what is it?
Glucose or saline or whatever the trainer or the doctor.
It's not like it's in the same category of oxygen and everything else.
Right. I mean, but it would be intravenous.
No, I understand the difference in whether it's IV or not.
And so our team was put under this investigation, and our urine samples were seized by the police in France and tested from the 2000 Tour. Absolutely clean, when we never knew they would be tested. So if we thought that they would never be tested, we would, if we were such cheaters, we would have used it because there was no test.
Right.
Well, after the fact, they seize the samples, do the test. White as snow. It was a beautiful thing for us. I mean, it was unfortunate we had to go through the investigation, but we were able to prove our innocence before anybody else could. Now they have the controls are in place, and it's great for our sport. I think the sport of cycling's been beat up, but been very aggressive.
Is there a part of the story of Lance Armstrong people can't believe it? A, and B, you know, it's just too perfect. It's too extraordinary.
Maybe. I mean, Charlie, you can't have 100% approval rating. You cannot have 100% believers. You just can't. There's always a guy in the corner who says, it's just not possible. There's no way. Either one of two things. Either he cannot overcome that illness and do this. I don't believe that. Number two, he cannot humanly ride. Nobody can humanly ride that fast without help. And that's where I go back to, I just think that humans improve over time in sport.
Is there, beyond all of that, how are you accepted by the French? This American who has come over there 3 years in a row and won the premier sports event. Nobody can remember who won Roland Garros last year, except tennis fans. Well, except tennis fans. So can I, but I have a connection.
We live in France most of the year.
South of France.
South of France. Still France.
Yeah,
a lot of foreigners, but it's
exactly.
Still within the borders there.
Lots of Russians, lots of Arabs, lots of
Belgians, everything. I mean, they got them all.
Exactly. And a fair amount of Americans.
Yeah, and so I think they know that. I've made a decent effort to learn the language, learn the culture, learn the history of the sport, and respect it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because there's this faction that wants to say, oh, he's not popular, he doesn't respect our race, he doesn't respect our language. But when we ride in the race, I mean, the people on the roadside they're overwhelmingly supportive.
Yeah. So the people are there, is your sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they. I mean, again, it's impossible to be approved or have 100% approval.
But my guess is that they do too. I mean, I think your story, the athletic achievement is so phenomenal. Witness the thing I read from the LA Times, and that's shared by a number of people, whether they say time will tell, but it ranks as an extraordinary athletic achievement. And so therefore there's great admiration for that alone. So my sense is that there's less to that than we might imagine. But it may be there because there's also in that country, as reflected in their politics, great pride in France, and B, a certain resentment against America because there's a certain feeling in France of a superiority of their culture.
Well,
you want to jump into this?
No,
or not?
I don't want to do it. I just thought, okay, you spend time in France, you can answer the question. Look, I'm absolutely passionate about the event. I love it. I love everything it stands for. France is a special place. It's different than Spain. It's different than Italy. It's different than Holland. It's just special, but it's nice. It's a good place.
Especially the south of France, too, in addition to Paris. I mean, the colors and the beauty and the...
It's the Tour de France, so that's, I mean, you see it all.
That's right. That's the great thing.
I mean, I see it all.
You've seen the Alps on a bicycle.
Well, I mean, I've ridden through them, and like I always say, it's not like we're sightseeing, but you get a sense for the smell and the feel of places.
But speak to that. When you are on the bike in competition, what's in your head? Is it always performance? Is it total performance? Is a sense of...
Well, most of the time, yes. The Tour is a special race because it's so intense
and so long.
It's dangerous.
Right.
You have to pay attention, and there's too much at stake here. So if I sort of lost focus and was talking to a buddy or looking at a site and fell over and broke a collarbone, well, that would be a bad thing. So, yeah, like I always tell people, it's like there's no friends in the Tour de France. No friends. I mean, because it's just so intense. Everybody's nervous.
Yeah. Do you deliberately separate yourself from everybody simply because of that?
No, but I stay around the team. The safest place for me to be is around my 8 teammates. I mean, you can't always ride 9 guys rolling around the peloton, but I try and surround myself with them.
Let me come back to something else. How else, other than what we have spoken about in terms of the Tour de France, in terms of your life as a cyclist, cancer changed? As you have said here and other places, I couldn't have won if I hadn't had cancer. It gave me something special. How did that change your life in other ways? Did you, for example, become... A friend of mine who died of cancer said to me a year before he died, he said, I just don't have time for pettiness anymore. Yeah. I've been to that place and I don't have time for it.
I think, when you're young and you're growing up and you worry about what you're going to wear to school that day, you worry about what your hair looks like, you worry about what the girl sitting next to you thinks of you. You worry about those little things. And at some point in life, you sort of start to get out of that. I mean, you sort of start to not care. Perhaps the illness rushed that for me, this sense of just not caring. And not in a bad way, but just being able to look past it and to get over it and to just focus on the really important things. I mean, and it's not about what somebody here thinks or somebody there thinks. It's just how to be true to yourself, and that's really all that matters. And true to your family and true to your friends and true to your beliefs. And it taught me to not care, to just to focus on the important things. And, you know, for example, before I was sick, I was kind of a young single. I was single at the time, young athlete, big, fast car. First thing I did, I went home and said, sold the car. And at that point in my life, I just didn't need anything material. In my opinion, anything material, anything expensive was not necessary. I didn't need that in my life.
This was after you...
This was during.
During. Right.
During.
Sold the car.
Sold the car, sold anything that was... or got rid of anything that was flashy or extravagant.
Because?
Just because I felt like that was not important to me anymore, and it never would be important to me anymore. I still haven't bought a fast car since then.
What have you done? What have you done for Lance?
Oh, started a family.
Yeah. Best
thing I've done. And, you know, for example, meeting my wife. You ask, what has the illness done for me outside of cycling and focus and determination and training? And met my wife. Never would have met her if I wasn't sick. Started a family. That's also a medical miracle. I mean, to have a baby now through IVF, to have twins on the way through IVF. I mean, just unreal.
Do you think about legacy?
Oh, I think for my sport or for my family?
No, generally. Just generally, because at 29 years old, at the top of a sport that, and the attention that you have received, and not knowing how long that life, that competitive life is.
Right.
You said a couple of years at best, but maybe it'll go more because...
Maybe go less?
Maybe go less. Yeah. You know, my guess is more, wouldn't you?
You know, I want a legacy for my family. I want my children to know what their father did, to know his story. And of course, hopefully I'll be around for most of that time.
You'll tell them that story.
But not so much for sport. I think I'll let somebody else write that, but I feel like I'm in charge of writing the legacy for my family, for my son, for the girls that are on the way, for whatever else comes along.
You said girls?
Well, they're yeah, they're both girls.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's another interesting story, but we'll get to that later.
All
but,
right.
I mean, that's...
No, let's get to it now. What is it?
Well, the first child we had, we didn't want to know boy or girl.
Yeah, right.
It was a surprise. Of course, we both thought that it was a boy, and it was.
Thought because?
I don't know, just a feeling.
Yeah, right, instinct,
okay.
Right. Because
second pregnancy.
It's like your wife says, I hear a bicycle in there somewhere.
Yes, he's making noises. Second pregnancy, we decided to find out, and I was in the Tour de France when Kristen had the doctor's appointment. She says, what are we going to do? I said, look, just go to the doctor, find out, and call me immediately. It's like we're finding out together. Just tell me, boy, girl, 2 boys, 2 girls, whatever. She says, I can't do that. It's just not right. She says, blah, 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 whatever. So she says, okay, here's the deal. The doctor will find out. Write on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope. And she comes to the tour every week, once a week. She said, I'll bring it, and we'll open it together. So she brought it.
What a great story.
About halfway through the tour, I just won Alpe d'Huez. I just won the uphill time trial, which was the following day. Got back to the hotel. Her and Luke were there with the envelope. Opened it, just 2 lines and 2 girls. Congratulations. 2 girls. Blew us away. Absolutely blew us away.
Any history of twins there?
No history of twins, but with the IVF,
it's
anything is, I mean, we used 4 embryos and could have had quadruplets.
Yeah.
So.
But after, first of all, would you change cycling at all? Would you change this sport in any way?
Oh, boy. That would take a long time.
What would be at the top of your priorities?
Better hotels, better food. No.
Better what? Oh, yeah, I know. But I mean, what would you do?
It's so traditional. I can't be. I'm more comfortable with the tradition of cycling now. 6 years ago, if you'd asked me this question on this show,
you would have had a long list.
I mean, I would have just gone
blasted.
I would have gone off. It would have been ugly.
Well, give me just a sample of that.
No, I mean,
how have you mellowed here about your sport?
I'm more willing to accept.
They have sucked you into the establishment, and you're there.
I'm old school now. Like with Bartoli and Coppi.
Yeah, exactly.
But I realize the sport is old and it's traditional and it's played a certain way, and the athletes. It is evolving, but it's still, it wants to keep a little bit of that old feel, and it's amazing because the event is so big, yet
Right.
sometimes the athletes are treated so simply. But
Yeah.
perhaps that's
So
what makes it
just give me
beautiful.
one thing that might make it more interesting, a better sport, more compelling, that you might be in favor of changing.
Well, I think that the compelling nature of the events is there. I mean,
Yeah.
the tour is what it is. It has everything. It has the flats. It has the wind. It has the mountains. It has
Right.
Pyrenees, Alps.
Yeah.
It has everything.
It has. That's right. It does.
And I think I would just. I wish sometimes the riders were a little tighter as a group. You know, there's no players union. There is no organization. There is no solidarity.
There is no camaraderie.
No.
Yeah. But you could change that probably. I mean, are you part of the
Oh,
problem or
boy.
the solution?
It would take forever. I have gray hair already. Thinking about it.
Do you really?
I've got a
I mean,
little.
but no, not so much. Do you really have from thinking about it? Here's my question, though. I mean, is it you there, having achieved this, gives you certain power? You know, I hear you. I mean, I'd read all these stories about how you were separate, apart. There might be some resentment that goes with being a champion, some sense of competition because of you. And I thought, well, maybe that's just you, in a sense that you had to do that to be the winner that you are, in your own mind. You know, if you became too friendly, if you became all the other things, that it would detract from you
Perhaps.
from winning, which is what you are about in this race. But I hear you. I hear sort of resonance of, God, I wish there was more solidarity. I wish we were more, you know, I wish it wasn't the way it was.
I feel a big sense of responsibility for the group.
Yeah.
I do, absolutely. Even if it's, you know, if you've got 180 guys in the peloton and 60 of them you just can't stand, it doesn't matter. I still feel responsible for all 180 of them. If it's safety conditions, if it's accommodations, if it's better organized events, if it's more efficient events where they respect the athletes more, it doesn't matter. I have a lot of respect for these guys, and I have that responsibility.
You do. I mean, you really do. I mean,
I think
leadership.
we all do,
but leadership comes
Sure.
to those who, you know, have prevailed.
But I just want to be very careful without sort of wearing out my welcome there.
Olympics.
Sure.
How big is that
To who?
to you?
To me.
A bronze is not a goal.
No, bronze is a long ways from a gold.
Do you want it badly?
You know, in our sport, the Olympics is not a big event.
It's like tennis or whatever.
It is like
Right.
tennis.
Yeah.
It's very much like tennis. But as an American, it's a big damn deal.
Olympics.
Yeah, and I've been 3 times. The best I've done is a bronze. Will I give it another go around in Athens if I'm still here? Absolutely, and that will probably, if I'm still here, will probably be my last year. It's important.
2004 will be your last year of cycling, you think?
I think so, yeah. If not sooner.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. I mean, these are commitments I don't want to make.
Yeah, but I mean, you shouldn't make them because
Sure.
Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
is talking about coming back at, what is he, 39
Yeah,
maybe? And the reason
it's different.
Why is it different?
Oh, it's just different.
Tell me why it's different.
Well, it's an endurance sport. It's live full time in Europe, which I don't mind. But at that, you know, when I'm 39, my children are going to be in school, and and on and on. And actually, in many ways, I wouldn't mind them being educated
In Europe.
internationally.
Sure,
Yeah,
of course.
for some time. I think
no.
that's.
Yeah. But I mean, my point is
Right.
that
I shouldn't.
if you are a champion and a warrior, Michael is in both cases, and so are you, and so is Tiger. You know, it's hard, and it's to give it up because that's what you do. That's what you've built your life on. That's what your life has been about. It's not so much the cheering crowds. It's not the endorsements. It's not the money.
Right.
It is
the passion.
the passion.
Yeah.
I define myself in part by my family, and I define myself in part by what I do.
Right. And the athlete, I've said so much about this. I mean, and I feel so strongly about it that I may be setting myself up, but I just want to have that sensor. I want to know when it's time to keep going or when it's time to just stop. immediately stop. I want to be wise enough to feel it. And it might be 2004, it might be 2010, I don't know, but I just hope it hits me. And I can say, guys, it's been great.
Have you said to people that know and love you, please tell me? Because if I don't see it, please tell me.
Yeah, I just hope I see it. I think I will. I think I will, because it's a daily affair for me. It's a daily ritual, and I know what it's like to wake up every morning. My mornings are my favorite time of the day.
Mine too.
Yeah, I mean, evenings are mornings. I go to bed at night.
Beginning. It's a new beginning every morning. Yeah.
I'm so psyched to get up the next day and have my coffee, and just the way I like it.
Yeah.
And it's a great part of the day.
What amazes me, to sit across from you and to hear you and have what you say resonate with me, it does, and because of the prominence of cancer in your life, you know, I always think about this because a friend of mine who had cancer died, wrote about it in a book as he was dying, in a not publication, talked about it as the most extraordinary time of his life.
Of course.
Because it is life and death. It is about what's meaningful. It is all those things. And you wish like hell that people could find that without having to go that place. You know?
But it's, and I've told this story many times too, when I first was diagnosed, we set up kind of a neutral email address where people could write in letters of support, and also an address where they could send regular mail. But a guy wrote me from a military base in Japan, I believe, in the military, Navy guy, had testicular cancer however many years ago, and kind of told his story. And at the end of it all, he says, "You don't know this, right?" I mean, I'm a week in, maybe 2 weeks, and I just think I'm the most unlucky guy. I mean, just in shock. At the end of the email, he says, "You don't know this yet, but we are the lucky ones." And I read this thing, and I thought, this guy's crazy. But, damn, he was right. Absolutely. And your friend who wrote this story, I don't know if it's a story, but wrote his thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably spoke about this I don't know how old he was, but you figure you're done growing. But what a period and what a moment of just awesome growth. Whatever, if you're 24 or if you're 54, you learn a lot. It's neat. It's very, very neat. And again, it's like you said. You hope that you wish you could kind of ball it up or put it in a package and
I'll get there some other way.
Or something. Here you go, a how-to tape or something.
Right.
But it's a special. It's a club. It's a unique club, and
Cancer survivor.
But you know what? I don't want to do it again.
But you do want to race again.
Absolutely.
You do want to be in the Tour de France again.
Sure.
You do want to win it again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You do want to.
I wouldn't start to get second.
Lance Armstrong went on Tour de France, cancer survivor, husband, father, son, human being, with Sally Jenkins, a book called "It's Not About the Bike: My Journey Back to Life." And you have told this story as well as I could ever have hoped here with me this hour, and I thank you.
You're welcome.
Lance Armstrong for the hour. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.